Between the mid-14th century and its eventual retreat, the plague claimed an estimated 200 million lives. This scale of destruction required the convergence of three specific forces: a lethal bacterium, a resilient animal vector, and a global trade network at its peak connectivity. By the 1330s, Europe was home to 80 million people, a population density the land could no longer support. As weather patterns shifted toward drought and flooding, crops failed, and malnourished rural families crowded into disorganized, filthy urban centers, where refuse and sewage filled the streets. This map shows how trade routes provided the necessary transit for disaster. Under the Pax Mongolica, the Silk Road functioned as a transcontinental superhighway, connecting previously isolated regions of the Eurasian steppe directly to the ports of Europe. Humanity's drive to expand global trade and transport luxury goods across oceans inadvertently established the exact infrastructure needed for its own near extinction. In 1343, at the Crimean port of Kaffa, a Tartar army under the Mongol Khan Janibeg cornered a group of Italian merchants. During the siege, a mysterious illness began to kill the Mongol soldiers faster than the Italians could defend the walls. Facing a total military collapse, the Khan loaded the putrid, infected corpses of his own men onto catapults and launched them into the city. Upon hitting the masonry of the city, the decomposing bodies aerosolized, showering the inhabitants with a lethal biological mist. The Genoese merchants fled Kaffa in a panic, sailing south toward the Mediterranean. They believed that by putting the Black Sea behind them, they had outpaced the slaughter. But the infection was already on board. In the dark, humid holds beneath the decks, thousands of plague-bearing rats were scratching through the cargo, hitchhiking towards the world's major ports. A local conflict over a trading post, paired with the human instinct to flee a war zone, directly triggered a global biological disaster. The primary carrier was the black rat, capable of entering any city through a quarter-inch gap. These rodents could climb vertical walls, survive 5-story falls, and gnaw through unhardened concrete. The rat carried the Oriental rat flea, the actual delivery system. Once it ingested Yersinia pestis, bacteria multiplied, forming a physical plug in its foregut. Starving, it entered a biting frenzy, vomiting the bacterial sludge directly into the human bloodstream with each new host. Inside the human body, the bacteria hijacked the lymphatic system, the network responsible for immune defense. It converted lymph nodes into breeding grounds, multiplying at a ferocious rate while evading the body's natural ability to fight back. The disease spread because it exploited the basic biology of its hosts, a starving insect's need to eat, and the human body's own internal defenses. The plague marched across the landscape at an average speed of 2.5 miles a day, crossing rivers, mountain passes, and city walls with equal ease. In its septicemic form, the disease was so aggressive that the time between first symptom and death was approximately 14.5 hours. Families would kiss a seemingly healthy relative goodnight and find them dead by morning. As the death toll climbed to 60%, cities ran out of consecrated ground. Survivors were forced to dig massive plague pits, stacking corpses like cordwood in layers of soil until the trenches were filled. Venice attempted to survive through strict bureaucratic control. They seized entering ships, established a fleet of municipal gondolas to collect the dead, and forced crews to wait in isolation on remote islands for 40 days, the 40 giorni that originated the modern quarantine. Milan took an even more extreme approach. Any household showing signs of the Great Mortality was immediately walled up, with the families bricked into their homes alongside the dying. The sheer velocity of the dying stripped away the rules of civilization, leaving only the individual struggle to survive at any cost. Medieval medicine offered no protection. Physicians relied on ancient theories of humors, attempting to cure the plague by slicing open veins to drain blood into bowls, a practice that only weakened the patient and invited further infection. Lacking scientific answers, the desperate turned to extreme remedies. Some rubbed human excrement into their swollen boils, while others drank the urine of non-infected neighbors, or ingested crushed sapphires in a vain attempt to ward off the miasma. This helplessness drove many to religious extremism. Groups of flagellants marched between towns, whipping themselves until they bled as penance for humanity's sins. Others sought scapegoats, leading to the systematic torture and burning of Jewish communities across Europe, who were falsely accused of poisoning the wells. The inability of any institution to stop the dying eroded the absolute authority of medieval medicine, the monarchy, and the church. By 1353, the first major wave had ended. Up to half of Europe's population was gone, leaving entire villages silent, and eventually allowing forests to reclaim land where civilization had once stood. This massive loss of life broke the deadlock between an overpopulated continent and its dwindling resources. With half the workforce dead, labor became a seller's market for the first time in centuries, causing the value of a single day's work to spike. Surviving peasants could now demand higher wages and leave the land of an unfavorable lord. This leverage destroyed the feudal system's ability to maintain a captive labor force, effectively ending the centuries-old institution of serfdom as peasants transitioned into a mobile, paid working class. This economic shift was mirrored in the culture. As seen in this Danse Macabre fresco, death was now viewed as the great equalizer, claiming kings and commoners alike. This new social mobility and the collapse of old medical dogmas forced a re-examination of the world, providing the capital and the curiosity that led to the Renaissance. The Black Death brought humanity to its knees, but by clearing the stagnant hierarchy of the Middle Ages, it provided the survivors with the resources and the agency to build the modern era.